Part of posting the content here on YouTube, or if you're watching on Facebook, to Facebook, is to make sure that the content has the greatest quality possible, in addition to being accessible by as many people as possible. What does that mean? That means, in addition to making sure that you have the visual, be able to see everything, that you're also able to hear, and then also, if you are unable to hear, to be able to provide transcriptions or text what's being said on screen so that you can still participate and watch the video, but not necessarily have to hear it. So what YouTube, Facebook, and other video platforms are doing now is they're allowing, or they're having their video content being transcribed, whether it's automatically or giving the user the option to transcribe it manually. I am leveraging YouTube automatic transcription for this video. So what you're seeing here originally was a transcription that YouTube came up with. I modified and then re-uploaded back with this video. So in an effort to make that process a little bit easier, what I did was I created a console application that will take a transcription file, do some processing on it, and then spit out the output, which then I can do whatever I want to with. So in this video, we're going to cover the code that's behind that transcription automation process. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump straight to the source code that we have here. And if you want, this code will be available. A link to all of this stuff will be down in the show notes in the description. All right, so what I have is a .NET Core console application. Fairly straightforward. I put everything into a single file. Yes, I know I'm probably violating some code principles, but the point is I wanted to get something very quick and not something that was too complex and overly thought out. It's not a three-tier architecture application or anything of that nature. All right, so what we have is basically your main as your usual. And so we're taking in a transcript file path as argument 0. And then within the try-catch block, because if you give it a file path that does not exist, it's going to throw an exception. I want to make sure that argument 0 has actually been utilized, and I probably need to actually move the try-catch block up here to make sure that it catches if there's nothing there. So let me go ahead and do that since I'm talking about it. And if the file path is empty or null, then I wanted to display the help information in addition to throwing a argument null exception, not an argument exception, that the transcript file path was not provided or does not exist. Then if it does exist, I want to continue on in my application. So I will have this called the method called read transcript contents. And the way this is set up is designed to read a SRT file. You can download, that's one of the 3 options that are available on YouTube transcription files. And the reason I'm using the SRT file is because Facebook, which I also upload videos to, also uses the SRT format for captions on their videos. So it made sense to get it in that same format, do the processing, and output it back in that same format. So when it comes to reading the transcriptions, you're passing in a file path of the transcript, and from there, we're initializing some values. So we're creating an empty string for each line, creating a list to hold all the lines in the program. Then we will open a stream reader that will read the actual file contents and put those into the lines. Now, what I'm doing as each line is being read is I'm converting the text on each line to uppercase. I am removing and out of those lines if they do exist, and also are removing words. Sometimes you'll end up with 2 spaces next to each other. So I am removing those 2 spaces here and replacing them with a full space. And then I am adding that to the list that I have. And then once all of the lines have been read, then I will close the file and then return back to my main method. And from the main method, all of that goes into this lines variable. Then we do the write output content. And essentially, this is being written to 3 separate files. And as I mentioned earlier, the reason it's being written to 3 separate files is because I'm formatting it for 3 different output destinations. One of which is the blog on rhtservices.net. One is for YouTube, and then one is for Facebook. All right, so coming down back to the output method, here we go. So write output content. So what we have is we're taking those 3 values, and we're updating the file name on this one. So we're removing the .srt extension from the file and replacing it with nothing. That's why you have the string.empty here. You could use the double empty quotes or string.empty. Either way, it's the same, accomplishes the same thing. And then we are creating the output file path string. So basically it is the transcript file path with a dot and the extension. And as you see here, I'm calling the same method 3 times. And the being is because that extension will be different depending on which output this is. After that, I am opening the stream writer to be able to write the file contents. And we have a counter here. Counter is being used for the SRT output specifically. I did not add an additional condition for that. I just said, hey, if it's going to run through this for loop, there's no need to add an if condition. It can still do that count and not negatively impact the performance of the application. But if it is doing the SRT extension, then it will count every 4 lines in a SRT file, restarts the format of that file. So you have a indicator at line on the first line, you have the timestamps on the second line, you have the actual text on the third line, then you have a blank space on the 4th line. And in an effort to show you that really quickly, so here we go. So you have a number, timestamp, the actual text, blank line, and then it repeats. So every 3 lines, you have text that you actually. And so for my blog post, I don't need the timestamps and I don't need this, I guess, grouping indicator. So I'm not using that in the markdown version output of this file. And so that's where this condition here comes in. If the extension is markdown and the counter is not equal to 3, to skip over that. Otherwise, write the output. Now, if I am outputting SRT files, that's going to output every single line. And then once all of the lines have been written, close the file, and you log a entry to the output, to the console rather, say that the output has been. And if you mistype something, the display help message will appear. It shows how to use this application. Same or similar information that is available in the README of this particular project. Again, I'll put a link to that down in the description. And then I have my output extension here listed as constants because they don't change. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you how it works when you run it. All right, so running it. And normally you would give it an argument of where your input file is from, but because I have this set up in Visual Studio Code, the argument is defined in my launch JSON right here as an argument to be passed in, so it knows where to look for that. And as you see here, I got three files. I got a YouTube SRT file, I got a Markdown file, I got a Facebook English United States SRT file. So if we come over here to the output, you'll see those files here. Drag this over. So the Markdown version of this file is without the timestamps or any of those other markers in it. YouTube version and the Facebook versions are exactly the same. The only difference is the Facebook file name is, Facebook requires that the file name be included. Facebook requires that the language be included in the file name so it knows what language it is. YouTube does not have that requirement, so it's just YT. In my particular setup is YT.srt. But the contents are the same in both of those files. And as you see here, you get the I guess indicator number, timestamp, and the text as well as the blank line like before. So that wraps things up for this video. Any comments or questions, by all means, feel free to drop those in the comment section below. I will have this code, as I mentioned, available. A link to it will be available down in the description, so you can go to my GitHub repo and download it, compile it, tweak it, complain about it, whatever the case may be. Comments or questions, drop them below. Please give me a thumbs up. And next time, peace out.